The mainstream sports media machine is absolutely terrified to report the unvarnished truth about what just happened in Brooklyn. The deeply cynical doubters are desperately, frantically scrambling to delete their old tweets. The New York Liberty front office is currently in an absolute state of organizational shock, and the rest of the WNBA is officially on high alert. We explicitly, unapologetically told you this was exactly what was going to happen. We sat here on this platform exactly 24 hours ago and analytically broke down exactly how the Indiana Fever's devastating catastrophic injury report was actually a massive, perfectly disguised blessing. We told you it would force this highly stubborn coaching staff to finally rely on the depth they refused to evaluate. And last night, inside a completely stunned and eerily silent Barclays Center, the Indiana Fever walked onto the hardwood, completely missing their franchise center, Aaliyah Boston, completely missing their most elite perimeter spacer, Lexi Hull, completely missing their veteran backup point guard, Tasha Harris, and missing Damaris Dantas. They faced the heavily armed, fully loaded New York Liberty super team, and they absolutely, mercilessly, and violently humiliated the defending Eastern Conference champions right off their own home floor by an absolutely staggering final score of 109-91. Welcome back to the entirely unfiltered, unapologetic, and fiercely analytical home for the absolute smartest basketball conversations on the entire internet. If you are looking for lazy box score reading, uneducated casual takes, and corporate PR fluff designed to protect fragile coaching egos, you absolutely need to turn this video off right now. Today, we are aggressively breaking down the absolute tactical master-ass that just occurred in New York. The terrifying reality of Caitlin Clark's defensive gravity, the undeniable leaguing validation of Raven Johnson, the historic 62-point explosion from the second unit, and the massive glaring coaching adjustments that Stephanie White still desperately needs to make if this team wants to hang a championship banner. Let us start by aggressively addressing the absolute, unmitigated dismantling of the highly touted New York Liberty defense. The Indiana Fever did not just win a meaningless preseason basketball game. They put hands, feet, and kneecaps all over the entire city of New York. Ankle brace, a hole, everything. All over the whole city of New York. Sabrina, Ionescu, and Breanna Stewart looking like ancient people. I ain't lying. These young ladies looked the sensational. Now, I don't want to toot my own horn. When you look at the raw, undeniable game tape from last night, former MVP Breanna Stewart and elite sharpshooter Sabrina Ionescu legitimately looked like ancient relics, desperately trying to keep up with a hyper-speed Olympic track team. The Liberty arrogantly trotted out their massive championship-proven starting rotation, completely expecting to physically bully and demoralize an Indiana Fever roster that was missing its foundational starting center and its primary floor spacers. But the absolute inverse happened on that hardwood. The Fever aggressively pushed the pace, violently attacked the painted area, and completely overwhelmed the highly favored Liberty with blinding transition speed and highly aggressive, swarming perimeter defense. Now, the lazy, uneducated casuals, the bitter box score watchers, and the highly jealous veterans currently sitting on their couches are going to immediately maliciously point directly to Caitlin Clark's statistical line. They're going to look at a piece of paper, see that she played exactly 17 minutes, scored 7 points, and shot a highly inefficient 2 for 10 from the field and 1 for 5 from the three-point line. And they're going to desperately, pathetically try to spin a false national narrative that the greatest offensive engine in the history of the sport somehow struggled under the bright lights of the Barclays Center. Let me completely destroy that pathetic, uneducated narrative right now with actual high-level, undeniable tactical basketball analysis. Caitlin Clark absolutely did not struggle. She completely, fundamentally broke the New York Liberty's defensive system without even needing to effectively score the basketball. Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello essentially treated a completely meaningless April preseason exhibition game like it was Game 7 of the WNBA Finals. Within the first 5 minutes of the game, Clark came out completely firing, dropping early points and sending an immediate terrifying message to the Liberty coaching staff. In response, Brondello ordered her entire defensive shell to completely panic and overreact. They aggressively face-guarded her, violently trapped her 30 feet from the basket, and threw multiple 6 feet 4 inches, highly physical defenders at her just to deny a clean catch. And what exactly did Caitlin Clark do in the face of that unprecedented defensive pressure? She played a game of absolute elite intellectual chess. She gladly accepted the aggressive triple teams. She operated as the ultimate terrifying gravitational decoy. She effortlessly initiated the high-speed ball movement that completely shredded the Liberty rotation. She finished with 4 massive assists and absolutely 0 turnovers. Let that mathematical reality sink into your brain. A second-year point guard facing the most aggressive physical trapping defense in the Eastern Conference, operating entirely without her primary screening center in Aaliyah, Boston, played 17 minutes of high-usage basketball and did not commit a single turnover. When you foolishly commit 2 or 3 elite defenders to stop one single player 30 feet from the basket, you mathematically, undeniably, concede a massive 4-on-3 advantage for the rest of the floor. Clark's raw gravity created wide-open, uncontested driving lanes for every single player wearing an Indiana uniform. The mere psychological threat of her shooting a 30-foot logo 3 completely short-circuited the New York defense. You do not need to score 30 points when your mere physical presence on the hardwood completely destroys the opposing defensive coordinator's entire game plan. But as incredible as Clark's gravitational impact was, the absolute biggest, most earth-shattering story of this 109-91 preseason massacre came directly from the bench. That was a lot to look at in the offs with the ball in their hands. Nice pass, Timson. I'm not even going to lie, the Fever bench is nasty, bro. They might have the best. For the past entire month, the loudest, most cynical critics across the sports media landscape have been screaming that the Indiana Fever's draft picks were completely redundant, that the roster lacked functional depth, and that the bench was an absolute disaster waiting to happen. Last night, those highly criticized bench players stepped onto a massive national stage against a super team and completely violently dominated the basketball game. The Indiana Fever bench scored an absolutely mind-blowing 62 points. 62 points from the second unit. The Indiana Fever might literally possess the absolute deepest, most lethal, hyper-athletic bench in the entire WNBA. We mathematically knew there was a chance they could be good, but absolutely nobody expected them to be this unbelievably nasty. Let us talk specifically about the absolute revelation that is Raven Johnson. The incredibly controversial first-round draft pick that absolutely everyone, including massive segments of the fan base, said was a massive mistake because she positionally overlapped with Caitlin Clark. With Tasha Harris sidelined due to a knee injury, Raven Johnson was violently forced into major, highly scrutinized minutes against an elite championship-tested backcourt. And what exactly did she do under that massive pressure? She orchestrated an absolute flawless master-ass in two-way professional basketball. Kayla Clark ain't really play that much, man. But the most to me, Raven Johnson stuck out. Now granted, she only had 6 points. She had 8 assists, 0 turnovers, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, plus 3 blocks, and she was 3 for 3 from the field. She finished with 6 points, going a perfect 3 for 3 from the field. But the scoring was absolutely not the story. She completely, utterly terrorized the New York Liberty guards, recording 3 massive steals and 3 incredible blocks. She was an absolute defensive menace, violently jumping into passing lanes, fighting through heavy screens, and refusing to let the Liberty guards breathe for a single second. And offensively, she ran the second unit with the poise and precision of a 10-year veteran. She dished out an absolutely staggering 8 assists with 0 turnovers. 8 assists, 0 turnovers against the defending Eastern Conference champions. She pushed the pace with blinding speed. She protected the basketball, and she finished with a massive +4/+- rating. She mathematically proved last night with live bullets flying on national television that she can absolutely orchestrate the offense at an elite level and allow Caitlin Clark to safely get the physical rest she desperately needs without the offensive system collapsing into total chaos. The highly vocal haters who claimed Raven Johnson was a wasted draft pick are completely embarrassingly silent today. And because of the massive gravitational pull of Caitlin Clark, the highly paid Indiana Fever veterans absolutely feasted on the mathematical advantages created by the system. Kelsey Mitchell stepped onto the Barclays Center floor and proved exactly why she is worth every single penny of her massive $1.4 million Supermax contract. Hey, she worth that money, man. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this right here. Watch Kelsey Mitchell. Laser dark splash, bro, splash. She is bringing Johnson, bro. Raven Johnson get coast to coast on this. Watch her. Watch her. My goodness. Raven looked good, y'all. I ain't going to lie. When the basketball touches Kelsey Mitchell's hands in the half court, it is absolute undeniable cash. She played 17 minutes and dropped a highly efficient 18 points, shooting 7 of 12 from the field and perfectly knocking down 2 of her three-point attempts. She was shooting laser dark splashes from beyond the arc all night long, completely demoralizing the Liberty defenders, who were entirely too focused on stopping Caitlin Clark. Mitchell finished with an absolutely staggering +20 rating while on the floor. She is the ultimate hyper's speed secondary assassin that this offense requires to punish trapping defenses. And then you have the absolute gritty enforcer Sophie Cunningham. Cunningham stepped directly into the starting lineup due to the injuries and came out gunslinging from the perimeter, bro. And Caitlin Clark made it look easy. Sophie Cunningham came out gunslinging threes. She splashed highly contested threes, dropping 13 points on elite 5 of 8 shooting, including 3 massive daggers from beyond the arc. But it was not just the shooting. It was the unmatched level of physical toughness and pure swagger she brought to the floor. When you watch Sophie Cunningham operate with that level of extreme confidence, aggressively rebounding and defending much larger players, it becomes brutally, painfully obvious that the Indiana front office probably should have given her a significantly larger financial bag and a much longer contract extension. She is the ultimate enforcer that this high-speed finesse offense desperately requires to survive the physical brutality of the WNBA. And we absolutely cannot ignore the continued mathematically undeniable validation of Justine Pat. We literally just released a massive documentary exposing the highly classified fact that the Indiana Fever front office was allegedly planning to cut this 6 feet 4 inches elite sharpshooter simply to save a tiny bit of salary cap space. We explicitly warned them that it would be a fireable offense. And last night, in exactly 10 minutes of highly restricted playing time, Justine Pat stepped onto the floor and completely justified our entire scouting report. She dropped 8 points, went 2 for 3 from the three-point line, and finished with a staggering +16 rating. +16 in 10 minutes. When you put a 6 feet 4 inches sniper on the wing, the opposing defense physically cannot rotate fast enough to contest her shot. If Lynn Dunn and Kelly Krokoff look at this 10,991 box score and still decide to cut her, they should be immediately investigated for gross organizational negligence. However, we absolutely have to maintain our elite standard of ruthless, unwavering objectivity. Because despite the massive 109-point offensive explosion, there were highly concerning, glaring disappointments on the floor last night, and we need to actively engage in some necessary, brutally honest tactical criticism of head coach Stephanie White and the front office. Monique Billings was an absolute unmitigated disaster on the interior. When Aaliyah Boston was officially ruled out with a lower leg injury, the massive rotational burden to protect the paint fell squarely on the shoulders of the veteran front court. We heavily expected to see a significant, highly physical impact from Monique Billings inside the paint against massive players like Jonquel Jones and Breanna Stewart. Instead, she looked completely lost in the defensive rotation. She provided virtually zero physical resistance. She struggled to secure meaningful post positioning, and she was entirely outplayed by hungry, aggressive rookies like Michaela Timpson. If Monique Billings cannot physically anchor the paint in a backup role when the franchise center is injured, her massive 2-year fully guaranteed contract instantly becomes a severe, highly damaging liability for this front office. This is the exact lack of size we have been aggressively warning you about. Furthermore, head coach Stephanie White absolutely cannot use this massive 109-point blowout victory as a convenient excuse to completely ignore the massive defensive lapses that occurred throughout the game. Yes, the Indiana Fever offense was an absolute unstoppable buzzsaw that completely overwhelmed the New York Liberty, but giving up 91 points in a 40-minute game is absolutely unacceptable for a team that wants to win a championship. There were highly concerning repetitive moments of complete defensive miscommunication, entirely missed switches on the perimeter, and a glaring lack of weak side help that allowed the Liberty to get easy, uncontested buckets at the rim. Stephanie White's defensive scheme looked highly disorganized. Whenever the Liberty managed to break the initial point of attack, White has to immediately address these fundamental defensive lapses in the film room today. You can easily get away with making defensive mistakes in the preseason when your offense miraculously scores 109 points. But when the grueling regular season starts, the scouting reports tighten up and the offensive shooting inevitably goes cold for a quarter. Those exact same defensive lapses will mathematically cost you basketball games. The coaching staff has to demand absolute, uncompromising perfection on the defensive end regardless of the massive numbers on the scoreboard. We talked about Stephanie White's highly concerning journey over championships mentality a few days ago. And those defensive lapses are exactly what happens when the coaching staff lacks the ultimate ruthless urgency required to demand perfection. The Indiana Fever just sent a massive, terrifying, league-altering message to the rest of the WNBA. They confidently walked into a highly hostile arena, completely missing their foundational starting center and their absolute best shooters, and completely, mercilessly humiliated a championship contender on their own floor. The bench is incredibly, shockingly deep. Raven Johnson is a legitimate, terrifying two-way transition weapon. Kelsey Mitchell is an elite hyper-efficient assassin. Justine Pat is an unguardable 6 feet 4 inches spacing anomaly. And Caitlin Clark's sheer unprecedented gravitational presence is completely breaking elite defensive coordinators' brains without her even needing to shoot the basketball. Well, the pre-sin is officially here. The uneducated narratives are being completely destroyed by actual game tape. And the live bullets are finally flying. A massive, deeply appreciative shout out to our highly loyal channel members like Sarah, Mark, and David for always keeping the vision, financially supporting the channel, and actively demanding elite, uncompromising tactical analysis. We are aggressively building the absolute smartest, most fearless basketball community on the entire internet, and your incredible loyalty makes this massive deep dive documentary content possible. Violently smash that subscribe button right now if you want the absolute deepest, most analytical breakdown after every single Indiana Fever game this season that the lazy mainstream media is completely terrified to report. Drop your completely unfiltered raw prediction in the comments below. Did Raven Johnson just completely silence her haters with that 8-assist, 0-turnover masterclass? Does Stephanie White need to immediately bench Monique Billings for her lack of physical resistance? And